All right.
Perfect. So welcome, Lynn. Thanks for taking the time and organizing this for us. We've got a good group out eager to learn about the new transaction management tool and all the stuff with web forms. So take it away.
Perfect. So good morning, everyone. This is Lynn St. Germain here from a little snowy Ottawa this morning. So here, let's just get started very quickly on, I have a bit of a slideshow and then before we go on to the actual live application. And the questions I always get from a lot of members is why did CREA did go into that direction. So I'm just going to talk about it very quickly just to give you an idea as to why we decided to do this. So in the last few years, we've had a lot of requests from members and brokerages and said what did they wanted. They wanted to have more tools and features in their forms application. So because in some cases, some of the boards were actually moving away from the existing web forms legacy because it wasn't doing or giving them all the tools that they really needed. So that's why we had to look on the national level. And we had a task force with meeting with members and brokers as well. And to see what kind of tool are you looking for when we're talking about, the web forms management. So it's not just the forms themselves. Many of them wanted to have more of a document management system as opposed to just a form-based application. So when we looked at these tools that people wanted, then of course we established some timelines, and then we were looking at 4 or 5 years of development. So of course, in this day and age, it takes forever. So when we looked around for some of the products that were already on the market that had these tools already, it just made more sense to partner with a company that already had a product which offered a lot of these tools. And of course, we've been adapting this application throughout the country because every single province fills all of these forms very differently. So some of the benefits of the new web forms platform is it is a responsive design. It does work on all popular browsers and your devices as well. So many people are now using small tablets when they're on the road, on the go, even down to a phone. So you can actually use it to create your transactions. It does have a much more stable environment because it does give us access to a much bigger team that we had before. So it's already an established team as well. So it's been around for quite a few years. We still retain the choice of different electronic signature providers as we had before with Web Forms Legacy. It does still remain a CREA product, even though we are white labeling their existing transaction desk. We are, of course, calling it, of course, web forms still, but of course, the platform itself is completely different. It's not an update to web forms legacy. It is a completely different technology platform. Another very important feature for us was the ability to provide 24/7 system monitoring, which was more difficult to do before because we had, again, a smaller team and it was based out west. So it is now easier to be able to react when something happened to the application. Excuse me. So with any new implementation, there are always some adjustments to be made. Now, I'm not sure to what extent this will affect Alberta. I know definitely BC and Ontario are affected by creating for us the addition of additional Schedule A pages or addendum pages. And again, if it's not affecting you, then I will not go too much into it. What's something else that we will definitely be reinstating is downloading editable form. In the past, the way that transaction desk was set up is that the forms were locked. And in Legacy, of course, we did have the ability for members to download and edit the forms offline. So we will be reinstating that in the new year. From a lot of feedback that we received, it was obviously a very popular feature. So this will be reinstated as well. We are constantly working on fixing some of the little bugs that were with field mapping in some of the forms. So definitely if you know of a form where maybe the information is not being inserted the proper way or how it used to be before, we definitely need to have the feedback from the members. And excuse me, the last one that also will be a priority is to update the forms in your existing template. So currently in Legacy, of course, you do have the ability when there's a new form to reinstate it and update it into your templates. Right now, it is still a manual function because it is not a feature that they had before, but we will have to recreate it right from the beginning. So that something as well that we'd like to work on in Q1 of 2020. So what I will be covering today, first of all, is what will happen to your documents that are currently on Webforms Legacy. If you haven't done the transition yet, you may not have seen it. So we will, excuse me, we will be exploring the dashboard. So as I said, it is a complete different concept. It's not just a forms application. It has a dashboard approach. It's very similar to a lot of the MLS systems, which of course you go on, there's different tools, different links. So the transaction desk kind of works in about the same way. I'm going to do work with transaction and forms in a more practical way, looking at the wizard. So the wizard is a help tool that is there, especially for those of you that have never been on the transaction desk yet. It's a great way to get yourself started and create no transactions. Of course, templates for me, it's always been the most important tool, regardless if it was in Legacy. If you haven't used them in Legacy, I sure hope to convert a few of you today because it is the best tool to save you some time.
Anybody use templates? Show of hands. Maybe half. Yeah, we have quite a few that we're using templates, so that's good.
Okay. Awesome. So personalized clauses here, or custom clauses as it was called in Legacy. And the new tool that we have that more and more people are starting to use is that team sharing that of course allows you to be aware if you're working with different agents in your office. So you'd be allowed to actually work on the same transaction and you're still controlling your own transaction, but we'll be able to look at that as well.
And Lynn, with the clauses, is there the ability for like the brokerage or our association to add like approved clauses that they can then use to draw from as a database?
Yes, there is the option that we, in Legacy, there was, of course, a Webforms clause manager. So there is something similar in 2019 as well. I'll show it to you when we're, did you have a Webforms clause manager before in Legacy? Do you know?
I don't think we had one set up, no.
Okay, so normally it would have to be what they call the super user. So usually one person is dedicated to have the level of permission to create those, but we can get into that later on. So there's an email that came out last week. If you missed it, of course, you probably were surprised on December the 4th when you logged in and then you landed on the new application. So you can still, of course, go back till the end of the year. We just wanted to kind of send a little reminder to people that it is coming. But yes, you still can go back to Legacy. So the next big deadline to remember is December the 16th, because we will remove the ability to create new transaction kits. So we want to avoid people getting near the end of the year and then of course they have a transaction that they can no longer access. So you're still going to be able again to work on the ones that are already created before the 16th. You just won't be able to create brand new ones. So the member support team as well has extended their hours during their transition. Normally, we were always available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. Now it will be 8 a.m. to midnight Eastern, and then on weekends as well from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, as you can see. So you can reach us a little bit longer hours. I'm not sure till when exactly, but definitely it's going to continue into the new year. So the next date to remember is January 2nd. So once you have you log in, of course, in the new year, you no longer will have access to Webforms Legacy. So in terms of the migration, if you already have done your transition into 2019, so at the top of your Webforms page, there's a link that says switch to 2019. So automatically your templates would have transferred, so would your personal clauses, and if you did have office clauses, those you don't actually have to do it yourself. That will go over. The templates, however, again, because of the different technologies, you will not have any of the the text or clauses that are inserted in them. So you would have to reinsert those. Somebody was suggesting, I thought it was a great tool to, if you have a lot of clauses or I guess conditions in your existing templates, copy and paste them into a Word document. And once your templates have been sent over to 2019, as you can very easily copy and paste them back into the new version. So the big item that you have to actually do manually is your old transaction kits. We haven't deleted anything at all since, you know, web form has been around for 18 plus years. So we have, of course, thousands and thousands of transaction kits in our storage that are either no longer valid. The forms have changed. A lot of them are not usable. So we're asking members to decide which one it is that they would like to keep as a flat file, because they are going to be non-editable when they send them over to 2019. So you can keep them as a reference to be able to look at them. They're still going to be a PDF, but you won't be able to actually work with them. So you can, you'll be able to open them up. So how you can send them over when you are on legacy, if you decide, for example, to keep this transaction kit, open it up, and on the left-hand side, it says send kit to Webforms 2019. So that will send this existing kit, and of course, this one has been completed. It sends it to 2019. However, you won't be able to actually work with it. I know a lot of people want to keep everything. If that's something that you would like to do, there is still the download option right here on the left-hand side as well, and maybe store them into your own storage space. I recommend to members maybe the last year or two, or some of the most recent ones, and again that you'd like to keep for a reference. But other than that, I encourage you to either just let them go. Obviously, if there's things that you don't want to keep, don't bother deleting it, because this will happen automatically at the end of the year. All right, so let me just switch my screen here. Is there any questions before we get going?
No, you can keep going.
All right, let's go. All right, so you can see the member dashboard here.
Yeah.
Okay, I will take that as a yes.
Yes.
All right, so for those of you that have not been onto the dashboard yet, so obviously the look is very different. Again, it is a dashboard approach. So this particular page right up front here is a completely customizable workspace. So you can see here, if I go on, let me just find my mouse here. So here at the top, there is a lock. If I open up this lock, I find myself a menu of what they call widgets. So widgets are essentially shortcuts to different actions that I like to do all the time. So here, for example, maybe I'd like to remove this one and this one here. So I just have to actually just drag them into this position where I want them. And these are the things that I do all the time. I want to be able to access them very quickly. Definitely as a default, I want to have the create transaction here, perhaps even the create template. And of course, every time I start creating transactions, I want to have quick access to them right here. Some of the green ones here, they're a little bit different. So, and again, these ones, the same thing. You just drag them into position, and you can really decide what it is that you want to have on that screen, so they can be adjusted the size-wise as well. And you can go back at any time and resize them, change them around. And of course, as you get more comfortable with some of these tools, you will just come back and adjust to what you like. I do a lot of the work, well, I guess the training part, right from my dashboard. And then always make sure to lock it back up right here so you don't move things around by mistake, and then you're good to go. And then once you start getting comfortable with the application, you'll realize that a lot of those things, like the create transaction, for example, can be done in two different ways. So the dashboard is, for me, the quickest way that I use, but you can also, as we're going to go through some of these tools on the left-hand side here. So of course, the first one, again, is the dashboard. Quick access to go back to your main page. Right underneath on the transaction area, so every time I start creating a transaction, I could, of course, doing from my dashboard, but I could also do it right from here, where you have the plus sign. and the add underneath, that means that you can start creating something. So you're going to be seeing this plus with the add underneath in pretty much everywhere in the application. And then right beside it, there's a basket. And that basket allows you, of course, to do multiple, for example, adding multiple forms, multiple clauses, etc. So again, the plus sign here, I could start creating my transaction from here and also from the widget. Here, there's just filtering options here. There is some different ways to view. Again, this is just a personal choice right here. All right, going back to the left-hand side here, right underneath, we do have access to the forms. So this is still the same forms that you were familiar with in Legacy. Thankfully, the association has changed a little bit of the filing of your forms, because you do have an enormous amount of forms in Alberta compared to a lot of the provinces. So we'll get back and work with forms further in a few minutes. Going back again to the left-hand side, under documents, so the document area is actually your own personal storage folder. So if you want to store any kind of documents here that are not web forms specifically, so for example, here under my folders, I could potentially insert some documents here. I don't have anything here, but I just click on the plus sign. And again, these are documents that are not web forms. They could be all kinds of format. It could be PDFs, Word document, images. There is absolutely no storage limit as well. So, and again, these are documents that you may want to have quick access to. You can store them right here into your document storage. The task tool here, I'm not going to get too much into it today. It is a part of the team working tool that we have. So when you create a team, you can actually assign a specific task to whoever is on your team.
And is there, Lynn, is there users for like unlicensed assistants and that kind of thing?
So for unlicensed assistants, we have to make sure that they are in the CREA system. So meaning that they need a CREA ID. So have they been alternating agents before going into web forms?
How do you guys do it now? Like you just use your login because there is no other option, right?
Do they use the members login?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
they need to access their transactions to assist the agent. The agent still oversees all the documentation, but yeah. So is that something we contact our local association?
Yeah, it would have to be done through the board because they need what we call a CREA ID. So normally, of course, agents get it automatically, but not all the staff is usually uploaded in the system. So if you want them not having to take, of course, to use agents' passwords, that would definitely be the best way to do it.
Probably under when you do the licensed assistant, unlicensed assistant agreement for broker load access, I'll just have to follow that up and get a user for everybody.
They do for MLS access.
Yeah.
They get a username. They're associated with the team leader.
Yeah, so they should be able to access CREA with those same credentials. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, if not, then you'd have to continue, of course, sharing credentials, which is not the best idea, but
yeah.
So it is, yeah, that's the best way for everyone to have their own access. So broker tools here, you're not going to see that as an individual agent. There is still a faxing tool, and people ask me why this is there. And because this product is being used by 500,000 American realtors as well, apparently they're still using fax a lot here. So
they're slower, right?
Pardon me?
Americans are slower than Canadians.
Well, I don't want to say that. You know, I am being recorded.
Yeah.
But it will create a custom fact sheet for you know, that you can download and print out or whatever it is that you need to do with it. But anyways, if you're not going to be using it, I wouldn't worry about it. It is right underneath. There's a contact system as well. So you could potentially create your own contact list if you want. In Legacy, we had the lawyer library, which was kind of limited because it really was just for contact information for lawyers. But here you can create any types of lists that you'd like. For example, there's a few of them here. There's also a way to create a custom one. I'll show it to you in a minute. But again, this is just if you would like to have access to some of your contacts very quickly. The only one
and
Yeah.
Sorry, this might jump ahead a little, but is there a way to sync it with like e-signature platforms or any other CRM software? Or
Probably not CRM. Well, I can't say for sure unless it's another Lone Wolf product, maybe. And of course, Sign is already integrated with Transaction Desk, so maybe there's a possibility there. So that's something that would have to investigate depending what the product is actually. But I don't think that if it's not a Lone Wolf product, that it's a possibility at this point anyways.
okay.
So here there is the ability to, if you are using Google Contact, you could possibly import them from here as well. All right, so that's the contact area. So right underneath the setup page is a really important one because a lot of the tools that you're familiar with that are on the front page of Legacy, like the clauses and the templates, a lot of it, there's some of the admin features as well. Now they're all going to be going on the setup page. So remember this one because I will be going back to it quite a bit. Let's just go quickly here on some of those options. So the first one under preferences. User and office information, you don't have to change that. That's simply whatever the board uploads to us in terms of your contacts. So obviously, if you make changes to your email or addresses, you would send it through the board and then they would send it back to us for the upload. Under the email signature, so here we did have this feature as well in Legacy. It's just to allow you to create a signature block. And every time you send an email through Webforms, it would just simply add it at the bottom. So it's very similar to any email application. Branding is one of the newest one here. You could do some branding for either your fax cover sheet or the email banner. I did try the personal photo option, and it does add my professional photo at the bottom of my emails every time I send it out. And there's also the option of only the company logo. So it really depends, if what you would like. You can try it out and see if it's something that you would like to do to personalize your emails. Right underneath here, program settings. That's also an important menu. A lot of global defaults can now be set up from here. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll probably just show you the one you're probably going to want to do as soon as possible is under form setting, which allowing you to set up an actual font. So you do have access now to a number of different fonts. I did set mine at CREA Bold as a default. You can pick anything that you'd like there, of course, and then there's also a default size that you can set. And if you are going to make changes, of course, always update it. But it is determined that all your transactions are going to be looking the same. You can still adapt them. I'll show you when we're actually in the transaction, but this will help you just set it up right from the beginning. All right, so notifications here. So this is pretty general stuff here. Of course, you can determine how much do you want to be notified when receiving email every time somebody clicks on your links. If you're using the task tool as well or the team share that we're going to be looking at later on. So that's completely up to you. Clauses, so your personal clauses or what we used to call custom clauses will be created from here. We'll look into that near the end of the class. Under type management, I'm just going to show you one thing here. I was talking about all the contacts you could possibly, contact lists you could possibly create. If you want to create your own, just here again on the plus sign, and then of course you can create, bless you, you can create your own contact list. And then, so here, Checklist Manager, again, I'm not going to get too much into it today. It's another tool that agents can use if they want to create a different checklist to remind them of certain deadlines as well. So that's something that it's a little bit more, I guess, an advanced feature because at this point, especially if you haven't used the application yet, I recommend to focus more on the transactions and the templates at this point, but that's definitely a tool that agents might want to look at further down the line. Transaction template. So I could create my templates from my widget at the front on my dashboard, but I can also create them from here. Exactly the same thing. It takes me to the same place. It really depends, again, how I start working. Team sharing. So we are going to, of course, look at the team sharing tool. Again, I'll keep it for the end. And then we'll get into how to create these groups. All right, so looking back on the left-hand side again. So my App Store. So App Store obviously is to link in your electronic signature of choice that you've been using before. So first of all, Authentisign users, it's a little bit different because it is already integrated into the application. So if you want to transfer your accounts right away, at the end of the class there, let me know, I can give you the Lone Wolf help desk, and then they can transfer it very quickly, because you can't use it in the current web forms and in the new one at the same time. So you have to decide if you're ready to do the switch already, and then you'd be able to go ahead and transfer it. So, and again, I can give you the number if you do have any Authentisign users in your group. DocuSign users here, or any of the other products for that matter, here I am already linked to DocuSign, so that's why mine says unlinked here. So when you go into your own accounts, you're going to see the green button here that says link. All you have to do is add your credentials, and it's just an easy relink, and you can just, you know, work directly and send your transactions from the application.
Do you still have to pay for your Authentisign, or is it included?
Yes, yes, even though it is integrated, it's just some things are made a little bit easier because it's integrated. But yes, it's still pretty reasonable. I think it's $69 a year for using it. But yes, you still have, there's only one board in Canada that is actually offering it free for their members, and it's Toronto board. So that's the only one. Everybody else, unfortunately, unless the office sometimes does provide a license, but yes, you do still have to purchase it. So, and of course, right at the bottom here, there's a support page, which is, of course, they haven't put their extended hours here, but it's the same. Of course, if you want to reach us, this would go into the CREA help desk. There is also at the bottom, let me just move this here. At the bottom, there's other training tools as well. So some of the webinars, again, the help guide is very extensive if you really want to go into all the details. Training videos are more task specific. So, and again, if you're looking for maybe creating templates, for example, that's a great way to refresh your knowledge. All right, so I'm going to go back to the dashboard. Are there any questions before I continue? I guess not.
Good. So far, you're covering it all.
Okay, perfect. All right, so going back to the dashboard, of course, we want to start creating these transactions. So, and again, like I said earlier, I could potentially start on the left-hand side, but I really like my dashboard. So I'm just going to click on Create Transaction right here. And as you did in Legacy, you still just need a name for that transaction. So they're no longer called kits now, they're just called transactions. And of course, because I do so many training here, I just put the date, so it's easier for me to find them again. You would just put in a name that makes sense to you, obviously. So here, I do normally, of course, always use template, but I'm not going to use one right away because I know there's still people that don't use those templates. I want to show you how to do a one-time transaction. And then, of course, we will be creating templates and using them right after. So we can do here a residential transaction. The import data, again, allows you to, excuse me, to import some of the data from the MLS number. If you don't have a number, if you're at the beginning of the transaction, sometimes you don't have the number, do not pick a board, because then, of course, it's looking for that data. So just leave it at select source and you can still continue. Now, I do have a number that I picked this morning. Hopefully that will work. Let me
better be one of our listings.
Well, if you have the number, you can give it to me.
No, fire away. Just kidding.
Okay, I'll see. There were so many listings, and then I didn't know which one to pick. All right, so let's try this one. There is here that you can, add a roll if you want, or just leave it at neither. So the wizard that I told you about earlier, again, the wizard concept is to have a predetermined set of steps to help you along, especially at the beginning. If you've never used it before, I recommend to leave it on. And it does take a little bit longer, but it's just to actually show you the flow of how to create a transaction. So I'm going to leave it on for now. And then, of course, at some point, you're probably wanted to disable it, and you'll never see it again. All right, so we are here into, of course, the actual transaction dashboard that they call it. So we are working on one specific transaction. Here, the one on the 118 Avenue Northwest. So where you see the previous and next, that's actually the wizard that's in action. And there's 5 steps to creating your basic transaction. On the right-hand side, so this menu that will appear every time you're creating a transaction. Essentially what the wizard does is that it takes you through the 5 important steps on that menu. So that's what I said, at some point you're not going to use the wizard, you're just going to go directly to that menu, because these are the specific components that are related to that transaction. So here I'm just going to click on next in order to move to the next step. And again, there's more fields here. You don't have to have all this information right away, obviously, but you can just come back and add it later on. If you don't, nothing's going to happen. They're just there if you need to fill it out. Step 3. So this is, of course, pulling some of the info as far as contacts are concerned. It's one way as well to perhaps build up your list, your contact list. For example, if I click on the name of this individual here, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to click on the name, and you can see it did pull the email address here. So I could click on save, and this person would be into my contact list. Or of course, I can just click on the plus sign here, add any new contacts that are related specifically to this transaction. So let's move on to step 4. So here, of course, because I don't have I didn't use a template, I have to add these forms manually. So I will click again on that plus sign in order to have access to my forms. So thankfully, again, they did change things that I find a little bit easier to find forms in here. So and then the way you select them is pretty simple. You just kind of make sure you have a check mark in the forms that you would like to add into your contract, your transaction. You can also do some keywords, like for example, if I'm looking for FinTrack forms right here. All right, and perhaps what's the other one? All right, so we'll just choose 5 of them. Obviously, it's all the same concept. And normally, you probably would have a lot more forms in any case. But I'm just going to choose 5. You can see my basket is actually accumulating these forms. If you click on the basket here, you can see, oh, this became agricultural. All right, so you can see I can what forms I've added in here. So if it's all good to go, then I just click on add in order to make sure that they are added in to my transaction. So I'm back here on this page here. I could also move things around because I'd like to have that residential purchase contract at the top here. And again, I can move these things any way that I want. And then once it's good to go, click on next, and that will complete the last step of the wizard. So this is here where we would actually add documents should we have them. If I just click again on the plus sign here, there's different ways to upload these documents. You could drag them in here in the blue box here, and of course upload from your your computer. This is the icon here from that document storage area that I mentioned earlier. There is also you could import some documents from any of these applications for cloud storage. And so again, this is just a way, and of course you don't have to add documents. It's just if you happen to have some that you'd like to attach to this particular transaction. So if you're done with this, let's click on done. And that completes, again, the wizard. And then my basic transaction folder is ready for me to start doing some work on it. So here we are in that transaction dashboard. You can see there's another log here as well. So I could also potentially do other customization here if I want to. I like to keep this one a little bit cleaner in terms of what I have on it. So of course, a detail overview, the listing number, and then the information, of course, address, etc. There's the forms that are in there. And if I had documents, that I could also see them way at the bottom. There are different ways to sort here your contracts if you want. And so the quickest way to start editing is actually, you could click on forms here, but I just actually choose the form that I'd like to open up, and it just takes me directly to that form right here. All right. So here, just to go back to the comment I made earlier about the responsive design. So depending on what the size of your device is, my laptop here is pretty small. So when I'm working on a bigger screen and I get to see all the menus on the actual on this line here of options. So you may your menu might look different than mine. That's what I'm trying to say, because the smaller device, the smaller the menus, of course, will adapt. And sometimes even if it's a very small tablet, you may see that some of the menus have amalgamated. So for example, the clause menu here may amalgamate under your file menu. So if you can't see it, just look under your file menu and most likely it will be underneath this particular menu. All right, I'm just,
yeah? Sorry, and if you had filled out those other fields, it would auto pop into here for the client's name and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't, yeah. The more information you put in those fields, of course, the more they will auto populate into the forms themselves. So you see the MLS number has filled out some of the info, but yeah, the rest it's completely up to you to the details area that we were looking at. Mm-hmm. That's where you would fill in some of this info.
Does it pull the seller information from MLS or no?
I don't. Did it do it before? Because it really varies from board to board. It's completely different. Some of them do, some of them don't. So it really depends what the board is actually sending. So it's did it do before? Do you remember?
It did, yeah. It might be because it's CREA listing broker or something. What was that MLS number again? I'll just look out of CREA.
That was E4176770.
Sorry, you cut out there. Can you just say that?
Sorry.
Again?
So it is. I do believe it was East 4176770. All right, so from here, I'll just keep talking while you're looking. So here, under your file menu, let's just quickly look at some of these options here. Under new, so new allows you to go and add some more forms. Maybe you forgot to add some form, another form. Open form looks into the selection that I've made, and that's when there's actually a faster way at the top. I'll show you in a minute. Save, so of course you can save at any time. It saves, it auto saves when you closing the form or exiting the actual transaction. Copy here, erase. There is a watermark option. If ever you'd like to have a draft watermark for, before you finalize your transaction, you can just really easily add it to all the pages automatically. And then of course you can just come back and remove once you're ready. So here the remove this actual form here, print, and then of course there is other options here that you can do right from the screen, and of course the X, of course, to exit, and they will save your transaction here. So the next one here on the font, as I said earlier, my font as a default is CREA Bold, but I could, if I just decided that I like this one to be Helvetica, I could change it right away right from here as well. It will not change, of course, the default. The default has to be done in the settings right at the beginning under the setup menu. So the color palette, of course, I would always leave it at black. My default size here is 9. So you could change the size if you want. Just remember that it is, of course, one size fits all. So if you do change it to one of the smaller size, like the 6 or the 8, then of course everything else will be 6. So it will be quite small. So the next one here is access to the clauses. So we'll get to that in a minute. Under transaction form here, the one that looks like a house, this actually looks again in the basket. So these are the forms that I chose. So if I'd like to go and work on the addendum, for example, I will click on that. It will close and save what's on my screen and take you to the next form. I'll come back to that in a minute. Here, of course, to travel from page to page. The little ambulance here is simply to help links to videos. So that's really what that is. Zoom in, zoom out, of course, for your just to change the visual on your screen. And there's a markup tool here. For a lot of people, I think they're going to enjoy that. I don't know what the rules are in Alberta, but here it allows you to do a lot of the, because I've heard for many years that people would have to take their documents into like PDF Expert and make some of these markups or strikeouts, and then of course had to upload them again to send it by e-signature. So in a lot of cases, you can do it from here. You can see here, there's a strikeout option, line, highlight. This one here pretty much kind of obliterates text here. And the last one allows you to add a text box. So you can, like I said, you can do these changes here, and then if you were ready, then you can simply send them by e-signature. So every time you see that pen at the top of your document, it's because you are linked to your e-signature. If you don't see it, that means that you're not properly linked. So regardless of which one you are going to be using, you have to see that pen in order to send it through e-signature right away. So it would send this form immediately to DocuSign in this case. I'll show you how to do multiple after we get out of here, but it is set up to just send this particular form right here. All right, so let's move on to the other form. I just want to show you how to add additional clauses if you need to. All right, let me just move this up a little bit here. So in order to insert any clauses or condition, I'm not sure what they're called in Alberta. They seem to be different from province to province. So just make sure you actually click in this area here to highlight the text box. And then you can have access here where it says clause, and that will give you your menus of clauses. So your personal clauses, as I said, will have transferred over automatically. And the same way that we chose forms earlier, you just select them by putting a check mark. Office clauses, if you had them, would also be here. System clauses are essentially the provincial ones that you had before. They're just called something different. If I remember, you did have some of the residential ones here somewhere. There was a folder. All right, I'm just gonna pick some of them in here. And of course, if you'd like to see what the clause is about, you can just click on it here. You can actually see the text. So we'll just select them the same way as you did before. I'm just gonna add a few here. Obviously, I'm just adding them randomly because I'm not a realtor, so you'll let, whoops, I guess in the same category. All right, so let's just say here, so again, my basket is accumulating those clauses. I put them in here, I can check out, make sure I get all the right ones, and then click on OK, and it will just insert them here into my document. Of course, from here, I can still make some manual changes to here as well. And then of course, just, I'm not sure why there's so much spaces here. There's maybe some added text, but so if you just can insert them and then continue as necessary. So I would go from form to form, of course, insert the information. If I'm ready to send it by e-signature, I can send it to DocuSign right from here. You can also, of course, send it by email right from here under the file menu here. There was an email option. And from here, you can send one or more of these forms. Click on OK. So that's pretty standard stuff here. So if I send this to myself, and this is here, of course, you'll have access to your contact list. All right, so you do have the option to send as a link or an attachment, and really that really depends, especially if you have a very big document. I would recommend probably sending it as a link. If it's just a couple of forms, an attachment is probably okay. Editing of forms, that was still there as well in Legacy. I don't know if anybody actually used it, but it is still here. The expiration date, and we did have a default of 7 days in Legacy. Here, you can decide whether you want to have an expiration date or not. And again, it's about protecting that document that you're sending if you don't want it to just be sitting there in somebody's email box, because they will get that deadline right on the screen on their email that they have to access before a certain date. So, and then you can send it directly right from the screen. All right, so let's exit this transaction.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yep.
So I actually have a document up and I'm trying to put a line through Alberta because it's going to be signed in the US. So I went up to the T to strike out. And I went down to Alberta, but it just puts a little box there. It doesn't.
Sorry, it's really hard to hear the lady.
Yeah, we're just wondering, I'm just listening to get the question first. So
Okay.
we're wondering about the strikeout feature. Can you just maybe demo that?
Cool. Resolve. Thank you.
You got it?
Oh,
Were you
She
just
use
using?
the line instead.
Oh,
Use the
okay.
line instead of the strikeout.
Ah, okay. So you fill that out over top of it?
So
And I mean, that would be good to use if you're countering back and using the system to do it. Like use that function to not, a lot of times we see stuff where we just get one final signed offer, right? But you should show that there was counters back and forth contractually.
So did she use the strikeout?
So the line works better than the strikeout?
Well, I think the strikeout, if you've got, say, that clause that you have to strike out. the
It'll do
entire
the whole
clause,
thing.
Instead of just doing a bunch of lines, I think if you create the.
Yeah, maybe can you demo the strikeout feature on that clause itself? Like, does it, if you click the clause, will it do the whole clause?
The strikeout, I think, is just meant to have one at a time. And I do believe the line here, you can do it this way.
Oh, there you go.
It's just a faster way than doing a bunch of.
Yeah, it depends, I guess, what you're wanting to do.
Yeah, perfect. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
One more question. When you sent a DocuSign, does it also give you, you only have to send those 2 forms? You still get the choice?
So
Yeah,
if
when you
from
upload
this,
the DocuSign, can you choose which forms get imported over to DocuSign?
so right from the screen, you can send only this one. Once I get out of here, I'll show you how to do multiple.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, so let me get out of here.
If you went past.
All right, so we're still in the dashboard. So we're still in the actual transaction.
Sorry,
So
just
yeah.
Lynn, just one other question there. Are you able to go back to that?
Yes. Any form or?
Maybe the addendum. So if you need additional room, does it automatically create another addendum? Like if you run out of space?
So this one, I'm trying to remember. So that probably would be part of the additional pages that they're working on. I did mention that at the beginning. I wasn't sure if it affected Alberta or not. You could probably add another one just from here.
Yeah, like our default contracts are well, in my opinion, better than Ontario because they don't. In Ontario, everyone chooses clauses. Like you grab
yes.
clauses and it's all a giant addendum. Like
yes.
you have to read everything,
Mm-hmm.
every offer. Where for us, the default contract, you can kind of just fill in the blank, and then it's only if there's, custom stuff where you need a little more room that you'll attach an addendum. But we would still have needs for it from time to time where they're doing deficiencies lists or things like that, where they need to do a longer form. But you could also attach, right? Everybody knows you could attach like that page from a property inspection schedule as a schedule by just having that page as a document and uploading that document. So when they had that feature of adding other documents, you could do it that way. But yeah, it'd be good to know if it works that way, that it'll just make multiple pages for an addendum, or if we have to add like 3 addendums to fit.
Okay, I'll just write it down just to make sure that I'll bring it up because that's where, so it is the addendum. Okay. You can definitely just insert like where I'm showing you there, new, and then go get another one. But obviously it's always easier if it's already in the package. All right.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's get back out of here again. Okay. So from here, again, I am still in my transaction. I'd like to send the form. So I am going to right here on the right-hand side, click on forms. And this is how you can send more than one or all of your transaction to electronic signature. So I could, pick and choose of them, but there is a select all right here at the top. And again, you can see my basket is filled up. If you open up that basket, then you see your pen right here. And that would send everything that I selected right away to DocuSign. But it also, there's other options here. I could copy everything, download as a zip, print, PDF, email, fax, or delete everything. So it's your fastest way to do multiple action with all of the forms or several forms. So on the screen, it will
Does
only
anyone want to
send
know
one.
about the fax feature?
Sorry, what?
Don't use it? Okay. I just wondered if for fax, if anyone wanted to know how that worked, but it doesn't look like it.
I haven't yet met a Canadian realtor that uses it, so.
We're all living in 2019.
Again, can you erase that recording? Okay.
We'll edit you out.
I'll put my name on it. Okay, so let's clear this because I don't want to, because they would literally just kick me out of Webforms and into DocuSign. So, and again, if you use AuthentiSign, they kind of keep you in the application. That's the difference because it is integrated, but DocuSign, they would just take me out of it. So that's why I don't want to send it. All right, so this is, of course, completing just a basic transaction. And then, so it's a little longer. Yes, we use the wizard, and of course, we add the forms and add clauses and all that stuff. So I want to work with templates now and show you, for those of you that have never used templates before, because yes, they are a time saver. So I could create my templates right from the beginning on my dashboard here. Let me just go back home here. So I do have my widget here for creating my templates, but I can also use it from the setup menu, which is of course the exact same thing. So for those of you that did use templates before, they would have transferred automatically. So you will have to, like I said, reinsert if you had any text in it. So you have to click on edit right here, and then you just find the forms. So let's create a new one again under the plus menu right here. All right, so as an individual agent, you're not even going to see that ownership option because you only have the option to create a personal template. However, with this new application, now we have the ability to have at the broker level someone designated again as a super user, and they can create office templates for everyone in the office. So if as a default, we usually would give that permission, of course, to the broker owner or manager. If it's not the person that will actually create those templates, then you have to let us know that you're allowing us to give permissions to this individual. And then, of course, a lot of offices are now using this tool because it does save them time, especially if they have a lot of new agents. They're not sure which forms to use, what clauses to put in it, etc. So it's a great new tool that you might want to have set up for your agents. So I'm just going to create a personal one here. So December, God, the time is flying. All right, December 12th here. So I'm going to create a residential one. Obviously, you can create any type of template that you'd like. And a template, of course, allows you to save time because you're creating basically a package of something that you're doing over and over again. So here, so there is these details, the same details that we saw on the left-hand side in that menu that we could potentially add to our template. However, I just want to add forms in there. So I'm just going to use the forms option right here at the bottom. And it's essentially the exact same thing that I did earlier. I'm going to choose the forms that I always use all the time, select them and put them into your template. And even some of them that you may not use all the time, but you definitely want to have them in that template, so you don't have to go looking for them all the time. All right, again, I'm just going to add 5 forms. Click on add. And these are the forms that I would have in my residential template. So, and again, if I know that I have some text maybe that I always want in my addendum, for example, I can open it right from here. And then I'm going to insert these clauses right here, like I did earlier. I'm just, again, going to add a few of them in here. If you're always using kind of the same ones, or even to be able to adjust them, let me just add a few in here. There we go. And then, so I just insert them here, and then I can exit. Of course, you can add as many as necessary, and that saves essentially my template. So I've inserted forms and clauses. So templates are meant to just, excuse me, to just keep forms and the clauses or conditions. So it will not retain any MLS data. I know in Legacy, there was a lot of people that kept using the make copy option, which of course it's not always a good idea. Sometimes it does make sense, but sometimes they would end up with old data from an old transaction. So a template will not retain this information. So that's why it's always best to use a template. So from here, of course, my template is complete. So this is how I would use that template once I've created it. So now I need to create a transaction. Okay. All right, so now I am going to use my template here. So if ever you decide to have Office template, they will also be available right here. So you could, as an agent, could potentially have access to their own personal ones or the ones created by the Office as well. All right, so now that we are actually using, creating a transaction, then we would have an MLS number if we do have it. Right here. So now what I'm going to do is actually remove the wizard just so that you can see the difference between the two different options, and then go ahead and click on create. All right, so exactly what we saw earlier, except there's no button for previous and next at the top. So now I am going to work with that menu on the right hand side. So like I said, it is quicker. So I'm just going to click on forms right away in order to work with my form. So if you've used, of course, templates in Legacy, you can see how much quicker this is, because I would have to click on plus and go and add more forms, search for them, of course. And then I could also remove maybe the financing schedule, for example, but it does not affect my basic template. That always stays the same until you actually make some changes to the template itself. So it's completely adaptable. And of course, if I look into my addendum as well, the text that I inserted earlier is already there. So I could, again, make quickly some changes here. Maybe I don't need this one, for example. So I can still make some adjustment without having to recreate it every single time. So that's again, it's a way to save yourself some time. And of course, if it's also coming from a brokerage, even better. Any questions on templates, or are you all pretty familiar with them?
Is there a way to get rid of it? We don't need a designated agency or commercial just to get rid of it. Sort of.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is there a way to eliminate forms that they don't need? So we're a common law brokerage. So can they just eliminate all the designated agency forms from their view?
Well, in their own templates, you mean?
Well, just in general, like,
no, unfortunately, no. The forms that are provided by your provincial association, there's nothing that we can do about that.
But in templates, you could eliminate it that way.
Absolutely. That's why, in your templates, you just choose whatever you need in there, and it will save you time because you guys have so many forms. So
yeah, because there's a different form for each thing to make it.
I know. I think we counted about 340 or something.
Yeah. And that's why people have trouble finding them sometimes.
Yeah, and that's why templates are your best friend.
So we're planning to do that, but will everyone feel like they'll use those for the Office templates? Mm-hmm. And what file types do you want us to have? Like I wrote down here, we would have like single family, condo, raw land, rural, commercial sale and buy, and lease and tenant rep. Is there any other file types you can think of? Condo. Yeah, we got condo, yeah. Which one? Acreage? Yeah, I think it would be rural/acreage, but I'll see if there's differences, if any of the forms. I think it should be the same.
There's country residential.
Oh, yeah. So the raw land, country res, and then acreage. Cool. Okay, great. So yeah, we'll create those. Okay. And then it might be jumping ahead a little on that, but I know it's a white label product with Lone Wolf. So what's our resources at the brokerage level to look into integrations with like our conveyancing staff?
Sorry, what's the product?
Lone Wolf. It's a white label of Lone Wolf, right? This
Yeah. Yes. But
Yeah.
what is the product that you want to integrate?
Lone Wolf. Like we use.
Oh, it
Lone
is also okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So we use Lone Wolf as brokerage management software.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
I was
So I
hoping
guess
even if it's a future iteration or what.
so that's well, you probably your best bet is to contact the help desk, because we're not trained into their other products. We just we
Okay.
just talk about web forms. So especially if you already have one of their products, definitely you should contact them and see how you can integrate this. It would definitely make things a lot easier.
Okay, thank you.
Because there is some options that I don't even have access to anyway. So yeah, definitely contact them. All right, so let's go back to our setup menu. So now we all are understanding our templates. So let's go back to the clause menu right here, which this one is pretty simple as well. So I do believe you had a question for office clauses earlier.
Mhm.
So again, only the super user would be able to actually add clauses in here, whoever that may be. So under here, you would have access to create them, and then, excuse me, they would be shared with all the people in the office. Personal clauses right here. It's coming. Okay, I'm not sure what it is so slow. All right, I only have one. Okay, so from here, so of course you can, by clicking on the plus sign right at the top here, you can add any types of folders if you want several folders, and then just add a clause created from here. Obviously, it's always better to cut and paste, and then just save it, and then of course you can have access to it. So if you have office clauses, then of course it would be even easier because you can just take them from whoever will create them.
We have them, but right now they're just in mine, so I'll be adding them into this for something.
Right into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, for clauses?
Powered
Yeah.
by Lone Wolf, right?
Yeah,
CREA
It's white
Webforms.
label. Yeah.
We're good.
All right. Okay, so let's go back to our setup menu here. And last but not least, I'd like to talk to you about that team sharing tool. So before you can apply an actual share, you have to create the group of individuals that you will share your documents with. So right here, again, under the plus sign, you're going to create a team. So let's call this Remax. It was River, right?
Yeah, River City. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll just call it that. Okay, so save here. So your page is going to look similar to this. However, in your case, whoever logs into that, on the left-hand side, you're going to see all the people in your office. Here, of course, this is a training site. There's nobody else in there but me. So I would have a bunch of different people normally, and I can select whoever it is that I want to work with on specific transaction. You can have more than one group as well. So I'm going to add this individual right here on the right-hand side. And then, so for example, these are the 3 levels of permission you can give to the people on that team. So read only, of course. The write only feature, which is not used as much, is allows people to read it, to make some changes, but they can't change what you've actually done. And of course, you have the full privilege, which means that somebody can do complete work with the transaction. So we were talking about the assistants earlier. If you don't see the name of the assistants on the right-hand side, or left-hand side, that means that they're not in the system. So normally their name would appear, so you can select them. So of course, save those settings. So that actually sets up my group in order to apply this share. So I can apply this share in 2 different ways. First of all, I can apply it at the template level. So if I go back to one of my templates here, so I can open this up here, and way at the bottom, so we had added the forms. So if you're always working with the same individuals, you can also set it up so that every time you create something, the people in your group can actually see your documents. So, and again, this is when you're always wanted somebody to look at your documents. The other way to do it is on a one individual basis. Maybe you're going on vacation and you want the work to continue. So I am going to just go back to my transaction I created today right here. All right, so again, you have to open up that particular transaction. At the top here, there's another menu under that traffic light menu. And just before we share it here, there's you can see different options here. So the delete transaction, obvious ones. You can put a note there, especially if you are, sharing it with somebody and you want to have at least some instructions. There's a duplicate option as well. So that was the similar that we have in Legacy. Apply template. Maybe sometimes you create a transaction, but you forget to actually apply the template. So you could still do it before you have to choose all these forms again. And then you can also actually create a template from here. So maybe you like this transaction and you want to decide to create as a template. It will not retain, again, the MLS data, but it will retain the forms and whatever text you put in them. So again, another way to do your templates. Import data, this is where if you need to change the MLS data within a transaction, you would do it from here. So you would just select it, of course, depending on what board, and always make sure to automatically populate the forms if the data has already been inserted into the transaction. All right, so let's adapt this share here, right here. So by doing that, I'm authorizing Team Remax or whoever's in that list to actually work on my transaction. If it's only going to be a one-time share, the one at the bottom here is probably not a bad idea. Notify assigned users because they will receive an email with a link to my transaction. And then they can, of course, click on it, and depending what kind of level of permission I gave to them, and then they can either complete or just read it, and then click on save. And that essentially sends that email to them right away, and then they're ready to go. So normally what you would see, I don't have any examples here, but let's just say, I did share, if somebody had shared this transaction December 12th with me, there would be an orange label that said shared. So I know I have access to it to do a full work with it and send it out. The other option says share with an I beside it. That means I can only look at the forms and I can't do any changes to it. So that's the difference between the two, so that I know. And like, again, if you're doing it at a template level, you're not actually sharing the template, you're sharing every transaction you're creating from that template. And then the individuals that were in that group, the shared group, then they'll be able to know that they do have access to making those changes.
Question.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, just one question.
Can you add, if you're representing buyer and seller both, can you add lawyer also or somebody outside? No,
it's just a CREA user. Yeah, you couldn't add like a lawyer or something into this transaction kit, right?
No, it is internal only. That's right.
But what you could do, because they can't have the ability to like make edits, it makes sense with a lawyer. You'd kind of want them to be able to add things in. But what you could do is, if they send you a schedule or something, you can manually add that into yours. It's really like your transaction manager. Plus, in DocuSign, you could set DocuSign to automatically send it to them once it was finalized, things like that, to kind of systematize it. Once people signed, then it would go to the lawyer and conveyancing and whatever. Lots of the agents do that already, that as soon as it's done, it automatically gets sent, so there's no time delay for reporting. And then with those teams, like I see with my broker login that I have all of them, like all the agents. So can I create, because there's like partnership type teams and different dynamics, can I create those teams for them and then their users will get invited?
I think the teams are only for yourself, your own transactions. I don't think you can create them for the other agents because they're technically the owner of their own transactions. Obviously, so they can share it with you.
So can they make, I guess the two questions that I have is, can they make their own teams of any other agent in the office?
Absolutely.
And can they put a timeline on it to automatically expire if they are like covering vacation?
there's no expiry when it comes to the sharing. You can remove it, but there's no. That's something actually we had put in as a suggestion as well to put an expiry, but no, it would have to be removed from the actual transaction if you no longer want them to access it.
Okay.
All right, so I've covered here all the tools, all the bells and whistles. Obviously, there's certain things here that you will not be using, and some of them you probably at a later day when you're more comfortable with it, you'll go back and revisit. Right now, especially if you haven't done any of this before, I would focus on templates and transactions only. I don't know if it's a quieter time in your area, so maybe it's a good time to practice. And of course, remember the dates I mentioned earlier, December 16th. You're no longer going to be able to create new transaction kits in Legacy. You still can work with the ones that are already existing, but you can't create any new ones. And of course, it is to avoid having at the end of the year and not being able to continue working with your with an existing transaction. And January 2nd, of course, in the new year, you will no longer have access to Legacy. So take the time to send over these transaction kits that you would like to keep as a reference. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
Yes.
So you said that if we find like individual kind of auto population problems, where can we like send those in?
You
Did you
can
hear that?
send. Yes, so it's about the problems with specific forms, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, just how it auto populates in like a transaction.
Okay.
I've noticed one problem that I have every single time.
Okay, so yeah, you can send them at support@crea.ca.
Okay.
Which is in that help menu, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And then try to screen grab stuff or like give whatever detail, because there's that ability to like attach things. So if you can say, here's the MLS number, here's the problem, then
Yeah,
they'll
that definitely
just macro
helps.
fix it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll test around with it too and see.
So the picture there is a picture from MLS. Like, do you add that photo yourself?
I think you manually add the
Add
photo. Yeah, the transaction photo that's there, you manually add that. Doesn't
Yeah, and it
auto-populate.
really doesn't really go anywhere. It just looks good into your transaction, but it's not really anything. Yeah, some of them upload and some of them
It's a nice
don't, so I'm not quite
visual
sure. It's
one.
different feeds, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good visual reference. We remember things by the property and the
Mhm.
people, but you can put photos of your clients in there. Yeah. Yeah, I need a photo for my transaction manager. Awesome. And then the only other main one I would think then is if you're able to give that feedback back or ask about the ability to import contacts like from a CSV file. So if we can, there's a lot of our agents that do regular business. So to have to manually add contacts is quite cumbersome.
Yeah, I know that it's not available right now. Like I say, the only one that's importable, I don't know if that's a word, but is only the ones with Google Contact. I've noticed some people that are a bit more techie that have managed to transfer them into a Google list and then of course uploaded them that way. But at this point right now, I'm not sure with the integration. If you talk to Lone Wolf, they may be able to help you that way to see if maybe you can integrate from there.
Okay, yeah, it's something maybe we can help people with too, because it's just 2 steps to do the same thing, but we would you'd take a CSV, import that into Google, and then transfer from Google into here, just adds a step. But great. And then one question that came in on the chat here, which I think you talked about earlier a little bit, but just to clarify, so if we want to transfer our legacy transactions, how do they automatically transfer into the new system?
So what you're going to have to do, the actual transaction kits, you have to do it yourself. Let me just go back to my PowerPoint. I'll just, in case somebody came in a little later here. All right, let me just show you again. Okay, I've lost my mouse here. Okay. So it was down here. There we go. Whoops. So from here, so like I said, the transaction kits themselves, you have to transfer them. So you'll have to open them up here on, let me just open up that slide here.
Just at the end of the slideshow.
Okay. Oh. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it. Can you see it without the, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. Here, so you'll have to open up the actual transaction kit that you want to keep. And you can see on the left-hand side there, it says send kit to Webforms 2019. And that will send a copy, again, an uneditable copy to 2019.
Okay, so that's what you're mentioning, maybe going back a year or two tops if you don't have it
Yes.
otherwise.
Anything else that you'd like to keep, just download them into your own storage space, but there's not really any point sending them everything to, to 2019.
Yeah. And just to cover that off, the office has a copy, obviously, if you've submitted those transactions to us. So it's deals that you might have written that didn't come, through or whatever, like that fell apart or never reached agreement. You should probably transfer those over so you have them still if that ever came up, right? If there was a complaint or a file issue, we want to be able to access those. So definitely worth keeping those. But otherwise, that's great.
All right.
Any other questions? What do you guys think of the new and improved?
When transferring from legacy to this new system, can you have to do one at a time or groups?
You have to do them one at a time, right?
Well, yes, because of course, if we opened it up to send multiple, then everybody would just send everything on the other side. So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have
Yeah,
to
the
make that
idea is to
decision.
try to say only copy it over if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you don't want, don't bother deleting it because it will happen automatically, at the end of the year. So
Yeah, that's our New Year's celebration when we cheers. We like, there goes all the paperwork. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Lynn. If no one else has other questions, I think that was a great presentation. Gives a much more of an overview of the whole picture. And I think it looks like a definitely improved software. So thanks to your team for all the hard work getting that all going.
thank you so much. Or everyone have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Wow, applause. That's my
You
first
got
webinar. I
applause. Yeah.
get applause.
Yeah. This is Canada. We say please and thank you and applause. Oh yeah, one.
Oh, we don't use facts.
Yeah. One last question.
Oh, yes.
You covered it in the first 5 minutes, which was the issue that I was having was getting it onto my iPad so that I could get that. And you said that would be allowed in January?
So being able to,
Download
exactly?
Editable forms.
Oh, download editable forms. So that gets turned on later, does it?
Yeah, that's right. We're open to do that in Q1. Yes.
Okay.
But the idea, Gina, is that you won't need the expert ever again.
Yeah.
Ever again?
Yes, that's what this system is trying to alleviate, is you having Dropbox storage for your editable forms and using that.
Mm-hmm.
You just go to Webforms and grab these.
Like keep it all in one spot because you can edit them in there
on the software and send directly to your DocuSign and send it. So it's going to alleviate you having to open DocuSign separately, to going to PDF Expert, downloading and editing. You should be able to do that all through this system, one system.
Okay.
So I get it because I do similar things,
Right.
but it's trying to alleviate a bunch of different softwares.
Yeah, because there's a lot.
Because that was a common issue.
Yeah, and maybe when
that
you
they
chime off, Lynn,
solved.
I'll do a quick demo. If would people want to see one? Like I'll open it up and like send something in DocuSign so you can see where to fill it out, and then we'll have that on the recording. Sure. Okay, cool. Well, thanks very much, Lynn.
My pleasure. So I'm signing off.
Perfect. And then I will share up my screen here and take that over.
All right.
That.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you. Thanks again.
Okay.
But my problem that I found is why I needed the PDF expert, because it would autofill my purchase contract with my buyer information that you sent to the seller. So then I try to open it up in like Adobe to delete my buyer's phone number, and because it's a locked form, you can't delete it. So then you go back into this little transaction thing, and if you delete it on the purchase contract, it also deletes from your buyer rep because it's like so I'm gonna.
Yeah, there's still little bugs. Like I actually think they've done a pretty good job rolling this out, considering it's like nationwide. There's like only a few little things. I was expecting a lot more bumps, honestly. So Yeah, but send those things in. Like if something happens and you're frustrated, don't just be frustrated in silence. Like fill out the form and send it, because if they get enough of those from people, those are the things they fix, right? They have a pretty good development arm for that.
You'll need to be able to do stuff offline. That'll be important.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to always have to be connected to the internet to do this.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Like that was the thing. I would have to find a Tim Hortons or find, sit outside at Starbucks and hack in and try to type this up and send it off. Right? What's that? I could, yeah. But then I was like, you know what? Then I just bought an iPad that had that. But it's annoying, and I get that.
Yeah, it's trying to. The whole point is
you don't
step by
just have
step.
to hack everything, right? You want something that'll just work.
So let's do
The new web forms, you can do it offline. Oh.
I was surprised that for a non-tech person like me, a buyer's agent on my listing wanted to waive conditions is in the US. So can you just send me the waiver? And I went into this and emailed it to him like, what? I filled it all up. I didn't have to print it and scan it and do all those other systems that I used to do. Right? So if I can do it, you guys can do it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, we'll grab Daryl's new listing. Oh, he's in the room. Let's do Ryan's new listing.
Your transactions,
Let's write a lowball offer on that.
Yeah, let's lowball Ryan.
It's a story in my life.
Oh, right.
All lowballs.
What am I doing wrong?
Was that presentation recorded? We can go back to it
Yeah.
and watch it?
Yeah, you bet.
The MLS data is not available.
I had that happen with the new listing. I feel like it needs like 3 days to like.
It takes time.
The one I tried to do was 2 days old and it wouldn't show up.
Yeah, these are timely, so I'll just go back a couple pages. So I'll note that too. That's a feedback thing. That'll just be with the data push from the board, which it should be happening like promptly now. Like it does it multiple
Should be a
times.
same day situation.
Well, yeah, at least 24 hours. Like, all right, whatever this thing.
I find that like if you have to make any changes on a listing, actually realtor.ca gets that very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, so why wouldn't you be able to correct
Yeah,
that, right?
it's just a data feed thing, but agreed, they should be able to solve for that. Yeah, something's up with that too, because it's not pulling anything off this one for the Hollands. For sure that's there.
Yeah, pulled Edmonton.
And the postal
And the
code.
postal code and like half of it. So
That's all it really pulls though.
yeah, so I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, it doesn't.
$3.99.
Yeah.
Let's pretend like it's 2007. Making a round it up, right? That's how you win. Offer $500 over list. Get in there quick. Okay, so we'll just kind of work through a few of these basics. Offer date today. Expired on Saturday.
You're recording this right now.
Yep. Super exciting. You want to sing?
Yeah.
Something Christmas.
All right, so we'd have to add in. So this is where you'll be able to have the kits, right? So you can apply a transaction kit template, and then it would just auto pop all the forms relevant to what you need, right? But I'll go into this for now and just grab a purchase. No, it's Alberta Forms.
Alberta.
Yeah, because like we have area that does it for the province,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And I totally understand the frustration when people look for forms and can't find them. Like this is it, right? And it's alphabetical. So if that does help you find it, that's the way it works. But so let's just say I'll do 2, so you just see how both like work. But same, it should auto default back, right? Like, why would I need to click that every time? I want to add a schedule, so I'll add that in. Okay, so next. Yeah. Do I need a fax cover sheet? No, I do not. So now, I think from here, right? Or where do I do that? Anybody know where I click to add that to DocuSign now?
Did you link your DocuSign?
Mm-hmm.
You have to go into your forms.
Into the individual form and add the two.
Or you.
Gotcha. So now how do you do it to add
But if you
multiple
went
documents?
back to that other page that you were just at. Yeah, press that X on the very bottom. Back where you were.
Oh,
Yeah, slide down to the X. And then on the right hand side, press forms.
you want to take the driver's seat here?
All the way over. All the way over. All the way on the right.
This
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Now press that little circle on the top.
So, or
Yeah.
you can select all, I assume. Yeah, there you go.
And now you can.
Go to, it's like Amazon. You got to go to the cart first.
Yeah.
So the way this works, right, is it's just integrating those two softwares, but it still pops you out into DocuSign now to do all of that process.
So much easier.
Yeah, it saves a lot of steps, and yeah, because we had that training on paperless and how agents were using it previously, but it basically like eliminates 5 steps. Like you had to download everything, save it, then re-upload it, then upload all of it. This keeps it all organized. Plus now it's all there and saved on their cloud. If there's ever a data breach, it's on CREA, not us as individual agents, right?
So why are those fields highlighted?
So it'll auto pop certain stuff within that, and then it's automatically giving you those integrations. So things it knows are missing, it'll populate. But that's where you can, it auto popping the initials, like all the common things that it knows. So
It's auto-populating the
Yeah.
initials.
How do you get DocuSign to that?
I don't know, magic. I just linked them. This is the first time I've done it too. So I just linked it on this laptop. Yeah. But so to kind of Gina's question, right, is if we did, say now I had a conversation after the fact, I didn't want to go back in and edit it. I could put something into here and put text in like, hey, tell the buyer, fill out which appliances you want as an example, or something that they're having to answer still. I could put text into this field and let them fill it out, right? So you could fill in default text that they can edit. You can give them the ability to edit that. So that's one, or you can make it read only. So you could make a last minute edit at this stage, but ideally you keep it in web forms, right? And then, so this would be all the parties you're sending it to, and this is the important one. So let's go here and edit recipients. So it's jumping you right into that. So this is where you can do those steps, and this saves a ton of time. So if you want to, so what do we got here? The agent, oh, I guess that's his listing. So let's say I'm the buyer and I want to send it to conveyancing. You change this to receives a copy. So there's needs signature, in-person signer is another big one, and receives a copy.
Do you have to put them as the third though, or does it would allow? you-
Yeah, so then there's this feature here of set signing order. So this is like pro tips of how to save tons of time with DocuSign. So you click set signing order and it defaults to whatever order they're in. So first off, I want the buyer to sign. I move them up. Now, whoops, I move them up. And now they're one. Only after they sign will it then go to the second party to sign. Or you can make them both one. So if like 2 parties are signing, you just, whoever signs first doesn't matter. But only after they've signed do you want it to automatically go to like the listing agent or whoever, or conveyancing receives the copy, boom, boom. So as soon as this buyer has signed, needs to sign is the key thing there. And yeah, and you can add a private message too to that party only. So all parties get the main message, but only that one.
Not a private message.
Yeah, so this is
They-
where you sit there, like, hey, here's this, deposit's coming next week, blah, blah, blah. So if you do it that way, you can sit there, do this, fire it off, and then boom, you're gone, you're out showing more properties, that offer's getting dealt with, and you're just gonna get, and DocuSign has an app on your phone that will alert you. So you'll be out showing your property, and then bing, oh great, they signed it.
What else I found beneficial is if I was sending to two couples, they all need to sign.
Mhm.
I don't give them a priority, because if one of them email is wrong, that could be my first person. It's just sitting there stuck.
Right.
Whereas if it goes to all four.
Yeah, so if you had
all
two,
four start signing, and then they start putting pressure on the other one. Hurry up, where are you? Because
yeah,
the
so it's
document-
down here, you would add if there was another buyer, right? You were adding a fourth buyer, or sorry, a second buyer.
You can add them both as ones, so that
Yeah,
then it doesn't
and
matter.
that's an important one. So you can use the same email address. So it's this little thing here that indicates that that's movable. So you can have both buyer one and buyer two as one to sign, and then both these other parties get a copy once it's done. And so in that case, the way electronic signing like law works is even if they share an email address, it's on them, and that's what they're signing when they click through it, is that they're individually accessing it.
You just
So
have a different name there. It'd be Ben Carter.
right, yeah, like buyer two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna use your email, yeah.
Yeah, so they can't, if the, I know lots that have husband, wives and stuff that share an email account. Yeah, so you can even send it to another party, even like a sibling who's there with them. I've done that before, where someone's at like a recreational property and they're like, well, my computer is like 2 hours away from me. No problem, I can send it to your phone. Oh no, I don't have a smartphone. Like, okay, well, you should get one, but but who there has one. And so either if they can access their email on that smartphone, or you can send it to that other email address, but to their name, because they're accessing it and they're signing with their hand, the same as they would sign a pen, right?
You're just using a secret code, what's it called, secret password.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, that's a good point. So under the edit recipients, so in that, say buyer two is going to someone else's phone or something, you can add access authentication. So you could over the phone or text them like a code, and that they have to input. So even if they're accessing it on a computer that's shared at a library or something, they would have to fill out that code. So yeah, so we can do another one even more on this stuff. Is there any other, but it's like, this really helps you be paperless and mobile and like just run off a tablet, right? Or a laptop.
Did it combine all of the forms that you transferred over into one, or did it keep it separate?
Check. Yep, the addendums there all as one.
But it put it as one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't add in those other
Because
things
like
that
when
you
you want to keep your like forms separate, like for saving and stuff. 'Cause
Oh,
then
yeah.
This just saves as one, so then you would have to export it into something to break it up.
Yeah, that's where on your end PDF Expert would come in to like save them as individuals. So now you choose each party. So if I go buyer two, let's start at the top as a habit. So it's color coded, which makes it a little easier. So you can tell blue is blue. So I'm now going to add in all the initial spots for buyer two, in each spot. And then I would add in, and if you had fields that you wanted them to fill out, you could use text, or that's the most common one, for them to like fill out a city as an example. So say they're signing in a different location, you could add text for buyer two to sign, come on, there, and then add their signature in there.
John, when you add text, it could be one line, but since you're only doing it in one color, how is the other person seeing? Because I know signatures, the initials, they don't see for each other.
Correct.
But the text they can see?
Only once it's complete.
Sorry?
Only once completed.
Oh, they will later.
Yeah. And one, I had used DocuSign to do counter offers. So I would put in a text box and use strikeout basically, or like all X's to mark it off. The one thing I noticed was then the recipient received it and said, hey, I thought we were crossing this out. And I'm like, oh, do you not see the box there because it hadn't been completed yet? So that's a little awkward because the client's like, well, you're asking me to sign, but I don't see the change made. So
if you do the text as you, like if you are John Carter and then you put the text, even if you're not signing, if you're the one that's writing the text, then it'll go to the client.
Yeah.
They'll see it first. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's easier now with this web forms. You could do those markups right in web forms, right? So if you got a counter and someone faxed it to you or hand delivered it from 1940, then you could on a cart and buggy, you could take it and like scan that in, and you could upload that scanned document, and then we send it from within here. So if I did all those signatures, you'd add in time and date stamp. So that's where you can do that. So it's automatic. Whenever they sign, they sign. And you can add location. Oh no, never mind. That's separate. So then who's on this thing?
It's somebody else. Yeah, don't check it. Yeah. Who's that guy is on it?
The listing agent,
Yeah, Manvier. Yeah, that's fine. But then you would go send, and it would automatically, once both parties signed it, it would automatically only after, because we've set that order, then only after both parties signed would it get automatically sent to the listing agent and conveyancing in this case. So yeah, and feel free to use this too. It saves us, it's a lot quicker from the management team. If you're sending us terminations, add us right in with the seller, like make me the broker's signature and do that. And then boom, boom, we got it and I forward it off. So we have probably about half the people, agents do that, and about half will get the client to sign and then forward it to us.
Yeah.
So all it does is slow it down. Like we'll still sign it and send it off, but it's much quicker if you do it this way. So feel free to add me right in there, and that's great. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, you just add me as a recipient, right? Right in this section. So cool. Any other questions on that? Everybody feel like pros now?
There's a tutorial in DocuSign, right?
Oh yeah. And we have a bunch of videos too on DocuSign. Actually, I'm gonna put that in recording here. How do I get this out of the way? Yeah. I'll show you one other resource here too. I think it's public, but it might be in our private. But we have a bunch of, if you need them, and I'll put them in with the recording when I send it out. I've databased the videos from DocuSign and whatnot. Yeah, I think it's under this one. So on our playlist, there's videos on, DocuSign, how it works, setting up your identity card, sending and receiving documents. So they have a whole bunch of training. I went through them all and just did like the things that are applicable for us in our business. So they're saved in there too. So you can find that on the Join River City site, or just direct on YouTube is our channel. Is the, we don't need you. There we go. Is the youtube.com/real estate agent training goes there under playlists, and it's under tech tools playlist. So that way it's on the recording for anybody else in future as well.
That's on YouTube. It's anybody can see that?
Yep. Yeah, that playlist is publicly available. And then about 75% of our content, and we have a whole bunch of just internal stuff, is only for our agents. So right now that's only accessible kind of on the emails, but we're building out an internal intranet basically that's going to host all this type of stuff in hopefully next year. But awesome. Well, thanks everybody. I think that was a good session. Stop recording.